game, to your point, Georgia has clear flaws this year. There are things about this Georgia football team that have not existed on past Georgia football teams, and we've said that all year long. And we see it every single week in different areas. But it's like, do you judge them for that, or do you judge them for the fact that when you're down 14 with 5.5 minutes to go, Georgia Tech has a 3rd and 1 where if they pick it up, the game's over, and Dan Jackson puts his hat on the football, and all of a sudden a miracle is still, within reach. I can't believe what we just watched. One thing I do want to do, Kip, I kind of just want to run through statistically like what Georgia did today, because offensively it wasn't a great game, but they also kind of got the job done in situations when they needed to. I mean, Carson Beck's stat line alone, I think, tells that picture. 28 of 43 for 297 yards. I think that it tells you a lot how they handled running the football, and I think there's an irony to it that they hand the ball off and finally get the 2-point try to get Nate Frazier to punch it in and win the game. Georgia just couldn't run the ball tonight. I mean, they were struggling to run the ball all night long. I mean, I think when you look at the final stats, the Arian Smith, 1-yard run for 30 yards kind of inflates all of that. You remove that, it's 25 carries for 78 yards. Not a great performance running the football. So they were relying on Carson Beck to find a way to will them into that game. And, he didn't have gaudy passing yardage numbers, but he threw for 5 touchdowns. Like I mentioned right before you came on, I mean, Georgia scores touchdowns on its last 6 possessions of the game, the last 4 of regulation, and then the 2 of overtime. So, offensively, you get the job done, but certainly not a pretty game. Spread the ball around to 10 different receivers in those 297 yards, so got a lot of folks involved. On the flip side of that, I think there's a lot of people that you can point to that had some costly offensive mistakes in that one. I mean, the Arian Smith drop early on in the first possession of the game on that 3-and-out. Dom Lovett has a couple costly drops, obviously has the fumble. Nate Frazier might have gotten away with a fumble because of some favorable camera work. I don't know. You might have a better look at that, had a better look than me at that one at home, but caught a break on that one. But all of that to say, it was not a pretty game for Georgia. I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, I said it before you got on, Kip. Georgia Tech throws for 303 and rushes for 260. If you told me before the game that Georgia Tech was going to outgain Georgia by 160 yards, I would have said that game didn't even make it to overtime, and I would have said, how the heck did Georgia let that happen? But despite all that, Georgia finds a way.